150 years ago, brothers fought brothers. Americans grabbed guns and turned them on one another for 4 bloody years of the American Civil War. This morning, Professor Gene Baker, author, historian, and professor at Goucher College, joins us with some retrospective on this. Thank you for coming in this morning. You are a wealth of information on this topic.
My pleasure.
Real quickly, why Maryland? Why did Maryland play such an important role as a cog in the wheel for Abraham Lincoln?
When you think about geography and the fact that Maryland is between North and South, then Maryland almost immediately becomes a critical place for Abraham Lincoln. It surrounds the capital. Can you imagine having a capital of the United States that would have been surrounded by a foreign nation? And that, of course, is what the Confederacy was.
Touch on that, because there is a misconception there that the Confederacy was still America. This was viewed as a foreign nation. They seceded from the United States.
Yes, they began doing so in 1860 after Lincoln's election. And then 7 other states joined, and in time, the Confederacy includes 11 southern states. And if you look at a map of the United States, you see that there are these middle states: Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, and Delaware. They're all slave states. To the Lincoln government, this is a really frightening prospect that these states might secede as well.
Was force ever used to keep Maryland from seceding?
Well, this is the really controversial question. My position on this is that Maryland would never have seceded, and that it was a Union state. We see this in the number of volunteers. 60,000 go and fight for the United States. Some 20,000 fight for the Confederacy. There is no doubt that there are some fervent secessionists. But I think that the state was a middle state and intended at the very beginning, in these days in April that we are celebrating now, 150 years later, the state really wanted to be a neutral entity between these two warring sides. In time, this became impossible.
The role women played during the time of the Civil War, because as our men go to fight, women had to pick up the slack. They had duties here as well. They had to maintain. What role did women play?
Well, as is the case always in war, women filled the footsteps of the men. Maryland is an agricultural state, so what you find is women who had never had much to do beyond the gardens that they had. They're out in the fields. Now, on the Eastern Shore in southern Maryland, many of them are still in charge of slaves. But in places like Baltimore, we see that women are emerging, in a sense, to do more roles than they ever have before. They nurse, they join the Sanitary Commission, which is the name of the precursor to the Red Cross, and of course, in time, they grieve for the brothers and sons and husbands.
Some 600,000 lives lost during the course of the 4 years of the Civil War. First blood shed here in Baltimore, as a matter of fact. The question that's been raised by many of us here, this was a debate that happened here recently. We have about 30 seconds. With so much loss, such a dark period for our country, why do we choose to celebrate this so?
For 2 very important reasons, and one is emancipation of slaves. The Civil War expedited this process of liberation for 3 million slaves, and we must never forget that. And the other reason is we are the United States of America. Had the Confederacy succeeded in its secession, we would be 2 separate entities. And I don't think there's any American today who would support that. That's what I will be celebrating during this time.
All right, thank you so much for the time. This interview will be on our website, abc2news.com, by 11 o'clock this morning. If you missed any portion of it, check it out. A little history lesson right here for you on Good Morning Maryland at 9 o'clock. Continued success.
Thank you.
I want to audit your class.
Great.
Back now to your 2 cents for the day. Today's